All right, everyone, welcome. Um, yeah, so everyone, welcome into the space. Yeah, please go ahead and if you would like to introduce yourself um, to the room, that's fine to do. Welcome back um, from this kind of 2 week break. Um, and so we'll be practicing, of course, tonight and then next Monday we'll practice, and then we're gonna take the remaining 3 Mondays, the last 3 Mondays of September, we're gonna take off, um, and we'll pick up again in October, but we'll send emails out about that. Okay, so we're practicing again next Monday, then 3 weeks off, then back in August. I'm sorry, in October. Whew, yeah, September already. It's Virgo season, all of that. Um, and welcome to those who are new for the first time. We'll get started with practice pretty shortly. Also, feel free to add any prayer requests into the space. Okay. So again, if you're coming into the space, feel free to add a prayer request and introduce yourself. And if you have questions, um, please. So there's ask a question box. You can add your question into that box as well, and I will have time to get to those as well. Okay. So again, welcome everyone to the space. Any prayer requests, please go ahead and add to the chat box. Tonight, I think we're gonna do, hopefully, maybe some really, really restorative practices. It's been a lot, of course, a lot happening with Hurricane Ida um, passing through New Orleans. I was actually in Hurricane Fred 2 weeks ago, which is why we didn't have our practice 2 weeks ago. So I was in Florida in Fred. Um, and everything in Afghanistan and the political situation, and um, I know many people are really just thinking about worrying about housing, with the eviction moratorium being overturned, pandemic, which is really the reason why this space started was as a response to the pandemic, which continues. You know, and in general, for those of you who are new, this is a space for us to explore really the healing tradition of Medicine Buddha by bringing in different traditions that help us to understand healing. Um, as we, know from the Medicine Buddha Tantra or the Medicine Buddha mythology, however you like to think about that, we know that Medicine Buddha and the aspirations around the Medicine Buddha were, of course, for healing, but really they were just as much about justice. And I think in the Tantras we can see that Medicine Buddha really, or the tradition of medicine Buddha really begin to understand justice and healing together. That like, healing is justice in a way, or justice can lead to healing and so forth. But there's an emphasis on justice. There's an emphasis on making sure beings get access to resources that they need. And again, this is coming out of what we call the great aspirations of the medicine Buddha from the Tantra mythology, the tradition. So it's just like one more minute, let folks get into the room. And as we get going, I just want to remind those of you who already know, or just inform those of you who don't know, I'll be having a special talk on, first on Wednesday, here for Bhumi Sparsha, our fundraising drive. And then Thursday, I'm doing a special talk on ancestor practice and grief, and the practice of grieving. And you'll find that more on my platform, so you'll find that, just in my social medias and webpage and so forth. And that's again Thursday evening. Generosity talk is Wednesday evening. There may be more things that I'm doing, but what I'm thinking of now. Check out my latest article from CNN.com. Just really talking about healing, mindfulness, and healing. But I'll tell you what. Just between you and me, mindfulness is literally the last thing I thought I would ever be while like teaching, thinking about, or even being considered like I don't know, I wouldn't say an expert, but something along those lines. But it's very interesting for me to think about that. But it's all about healing. These traditions are all about healing. And I think this is part of the Medicine Buddha work, and also the tradition of Tantra Vajrayana Buddhism. Anyway, it's just this idea, this practice that anything can be turned into medicine. And I think that's the thing that I want us to really keep at the heart of our practice tonight. Like we push away against things. There's so much to push away against. Like it's again, it's like violence and unrest and war. It's easy just to like push that away, but what Tantra is asking us to do is to lean closer, right? And even make this audacious step to begin to transform what we see as poison into medicine. I think sometimes it's so weird. Sometimes in these spaces, I feel like a preacher. I feel like my mom and my grandfather, who were both preachers, ministers. But the transformation of poison into medicine, the transformation of hate into compassion, for instance, right? The transformation of the grief or the sorrow into something liberatory, into spaciousness. And then again, this is getting back to this tantric understanding of mind, which is that mind is an expression of space, emptiness, energy, right? There's nothing there, but there's something, right? There's a consciousness, there's a knowingness to this space. The space knows itself, you know. and knowing that like we have to get back to that basic elemental foundational, I would say primordial essence. Like no matter what we see, hear, taste, experience, everything in the phenomenal world, right? Everything within the cycle of samsara is nothing but this expression of space, emptiness, energy. So we're gonna do just like a um, reflection before we like do a real practice, right? Let's just take a few moments just to, this is reflection practice, right? So it's okay to think with this and analyze. But as we begin, so it's just taking everything that I've just mentioned into consideration, right? When we talk about the nature of all phenomena being space, emptiness, energy, right? So just taking that really as an intellectual kind of knowingness, like maybe we don't feel that or embody that, but just take that as like a point of reflection. And then beginning to then reflect on some of the stuff that you're struggling with right now. The anxiety, the fear, the confusion. Maybe it's a specific relationship. Maybe we are being very super impacted by the pandemic and so forth. Right? Thinking about allowing these things, which are just thoughts, right, and sensations to arise in your mind. And as they arise, like when the anxiety about, the pandemic arises, looking at it and saying, okay, this is nothing but emptiness and space and energy. The essence of this is space, emptiness, energy. And just doing that, just one after the other, like as anxiety arises, doing this contemplation, and just experiencing what happens. I want you to say it verbally or mentally, that phrase out, in whatever, verbally or mentally, saying the phrase, this is nothing but space, emptiness, energy. Or you can just imagine the anxiety in front of you and you can just directly, address it. You're nothing but space, emptiness, energy. And just saying it over and over again until you begin to notice a shift. And then letting go, moving to the next thing that you're pushing away from. As you will notice, for those of you who are practicing Cha, this is a basic practice in Cha, or in severance, but particularly Cha. You're feeding. As the Vajrayana path would say, you're feeding the demons. Right? You're feeding the demons, or you're feeding the things that you're running away from. And you're feeding it the awareness that you know what it is: space, emptiness, energy. So let's trying this for a couple of minutes as we begin our practice tonight. So again, as things arise, space, emptiness, energy. So this can become like a mantra, right? For all the stuff that's arising for us. Like one of the tools can be, it's like a spell, like an enchantment or something, right? Or else we would say in the South, it's like laying roots on someone, or hexing. But that space, emptiness, energy, as a mantra, as a spell, right, into this experience of what you're running away from, the demon, or the source of fear, anxiety, and so forth. And it's just it becomes a reminder, of what we're really dealing with. It like the really like amazing, fantastic thing about like tantra and tantric practice is it's not. There are complex practices, sadhanas, right? Mantras, visualizations, charts, and rituals and ceremonies that, take years, right, to even wrap your mind around sometimes, right? It's just all of that, and the colors and the pageantry, right, and statues and icons, all of that, like all of that. So interesting, but all of that, there's no ceremony or ritual, in Buddhist Tantra that isn't just doing this one basic thing, which is training us to recognize the nature of mind. Nature of mind is the same essence as the nature of all phenomena. We would argue that our phenomenal world, the samsara, is the expression of our own minds, which is to say that it springs out of space, emptiness, energy, right? And that we're in our practice just trying to return back to that fundamental primordial awareness, that we've gotten distracted by the world of phenomena and form, right? Or we've gotten super away from like emptiness, openness, right? Space. So what all this whole tradition, I would argue all the path of Buddha Dharma, is really about coming back to this fundamental state, recognizing that. Recognizing the illusion of everything, especially ego, and then saying, oh, that's it. And you'll begin to see, this kind of dissolving of phenomena into this expression of emptiness, space, and energy. This image that I'll share, maybe it could be helpful to you. It's like dissolving salt into a bowl of clear broth, or a broth, or dissolving a little spoonful of sugar into hot tea. And the point of these images is to just kind of help us to understand that, like, this practice of recognizing the essence of phenomena, the essence of the mind, is just a gentle, no, not sexy, not glamorous, but gentle, basic, natural process of dissolving. Like dissolving the realness, this thing that we have considered to be real, dissolving that realness into this basic essence, right? So dissolving the sugar into the hot tea. Gentle, natural, nice and easy. This is regardless of how rigid some of these practices can be, this is still a path of, like, just, I want to say, ease on down the road. But it's this gentle path of just like resting, settling, dissolving. And this happens all over, whatever practice or sadhana it is. This is the basic gesture, right? Like for all you yoga folks, for all of us, like, it's when you build a yoga sequence, right? And you, at least in my training, we built it around one asana. So all the moves, the asanas before that main asana, are just like getting us ready to get into that main pose, and then the rest of the class is really just like helping us to really dissolve back into the shavasana, right? Where we can ease right into the nature of things. If that's helpful. So different images. But it's been so helpful for me to think in images, to think in like allegories or metaphors, and visual, pictures, and to do this kind of thinking while I'm always aligning things together, because for me that's how I get into the heart of something really quickly. I just start grabbing and pulling at my sides, right? So again, what this can look like the grand pose, the top of the climax of the asana series, whatever you want to look at it. This dissolve, well, actually coming down after that grand pose into Shavasana, that coming down, relaxing, that dissolving, right? That is the fundamental action energy of Buddha Dharma. Right? So let's go into our more formal practice now, and make sure you get your prayer requests. I'll try to read those as well as I begin moving into the practice. I want to see, I want to continue to work with this energy of dissolving. Which yes, it can be a little unsettling. But dissolving. Milarepa, in the songs of Milarepa, the 100,000 songs of Milarepa. By the way, it's not 100,000 words songs. It's maybe 100,000 words, but anyhow, it's so in Milarepa's instructions, it's like awareness meeting awareness. That's the dissolving, right? So I'm gonna try to just offer different ways to get there, but also feel free to just just really be creative in your practice and see what happens. But yeah, the fundamental energy of dissolving, which can be maybe understood as surrender or offering. Right? So I actually want to begin just working more with the energy of the space by beginning with Medicine Buddha's opening mantra. Minla Sangye Kino Soha. And again, Minla Sangye means Medicine Buddha. Kino is a very powerful word in Tibetan. That's directly translated as think, and Soha may it be. One translation, Swaha, depending on the chanting. So basically, we are supplicating Medicine Buddha to think of us, to know us, right? To bless us. When we're praying, when we pray to deities and to gods and so forth, in many traditions we're asking that energy, right, to notice us. And the noticing becomes what we mean by blessing, right? So in the same way in Tantric traditions, right, when we ask the teacher, the guru, the deity, to think of us, it's like we become this object of blessing for this divine awakened energy to be channeled into. But we have to say their names, right? That's Beyonce, right? Destiny Child. Say my name, honey. But that's a lot of what these divine, sacred, awakened energies are actually asking us, is to say their name, to be noticed, so we become recipients. It's training our minds, right? It's mind training. On one hand, Lojong is also Satipatthana. We're turning our attention to a source of enlightenment, right? Which is what the Satipatthana is doing, as well as pointing our minds to what can be, it's pointing our minds to something that is, as it would say, virtuous, right? And in that virtue beginning to understand the nature of things. So we begin to start directing the healing, awakened energy of Medicine Buddha into our space, into our practice, and feel free to imagine that your space, your home, wherever you're living or practicing right now, as you're listening to this mantra or chanting the mantra, that your space becomes deeply blessed and awakened with the consciousness of Medicine Buddha. Okay, we'll begin. Om La Sangye Ki No So 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 So we'll continue moving deeper into our practice as we begin, just encouraging you to take care of yourself, making choices that support you. We will be doing some work with the breath. If the breath is not accessible, please let go of the breath, turning your mind and attention to something that's a little more grounding. And then just visually moving through whatever instruction that I offer, if that's possible. Okay. And so, beginning to shift our attention to the breath, just noticing the in breath and the out breath. One more full breath. On the exhale, shifting your attention down to the heart center. Imagine that you're breathing in and out of the heart center, beginning to awaken the heart chakra. And to add another layer of practice here, you can begin to imagine that on the inhale, that you begin to inhale this awakened conscious energy of Medicine Buddha in your space. So what we've just awakened through the mantra, we begin to inhale deep into the heart center, allowing that consciousness of Medicine Buddha to continue to awaken the heart center. As we exhale, imagine that you're just releasing, letting go of anything that you've been struggling with, worried about, having anxiety over. Just releasing it, out breath, inhaling the blessing of Medicine Buddha, this energy of healing, into the heart center. So I'll slowly begin to turn my attention to our prayer requests. And as we begin to practice with our prayer requests today, As I read a prayer request, I invite you to imagine just connecting briefly with the need that this prayer request is offering or asking us to bring into our practice. So connecting to the need for beings to be well, to be freed from samsara, to have safe passage into the spirit world, for housing, for justice, and so forth. Whatever it is, just connecting to the need. And then imagine just breathing, exhaling this energy. Or actually, reverse that. We're going to imagine that we're inhaling into this need of the prayer request and inhaling that energy of healing, awakening, this awakened Medicine Buddha energy deep into that energy, and then releasing that energy in an out breath. So in my practice, when I am offering prayers, I'm feeling the need of that prayer in my heart center. So as I breathe into my heart center, I'm breathing in the blessings of Medicine Buddha. And then I exhale that prayer back out to be offered more deeply into the expression of Medicine Buddha. Okay. So one more time, because I know I kept adding things to that. So beginning to feel the need, right, of the prayer requests in our heart centers. And then inhaling into our heart centers, really filling that need up in the situation that's being offered up with the blessings and healing energy of Medicine Buddha. And then just releasing all of that, as if you're just cleansing the heart of having done this energetic work for this prayer, just cleansing that and then beginning to take on the next prayer. And we're going to keep doing that, as much as you can in this practice, okay? So we'll begin, and as always, I ask for the intention, the gathering, all of our sources of refuge, including all the Buddhas, the Bodhisattvas, all the saints, all beneficial lineage members, sanghas, communities, and teachers, all beings, to hear the prayers that we begin to offer on behalf of our community and the world, for the purpose of all beings eventually achieving liberation. We offer these prayers to you. We begin our practice. We're offering prayers for the Afghan people left behind in such danger and need, and releasing that. We're offering prayers for my family. Dad at stage 4. Lots of pain and trauma among all of us. Breathing deeply in, releasing. Offering prayers for clarity and trusting myself and my practice. Offering prayers for my friend Kate. May she take care of herself as she cares for many others, and may she have strength as she continues her selfless work. Offering prayers for my ability to protect my boundaries and protect my practice amongst everything that is arising in my material existence. Offering prayers for kindness, interconnectedness, and belonging through times of healing and discernment. Offering prayers for the healing of Faye's knee, for Bob to receive his illness as an opportunity for awareness and to claim his power to choose a response. offering prayers for patience and love for our co-liberators, that we remember that we're here for, and in the moments that we forget, we find grace for each other. Offering prayers for my friend Wanda and her daughter Corin, who are grieving, facing loss and medical issues. We're offering prayers for those in the hurricane's path and those dealing with all life's hurricanes, and for T and resilience, and for myself to have joy even in health struggles. We're offering prayers for Patricia Bradshaw in Jordan with her very ill son-in-law Khalid and his wife, Patricia's daughter. The healing for all of them in every way possible, and safe return home for Patricia, and stabilization for Alexa. We're offering prayers for our teachers in Bumisparsha and throughout, and that they keep helping us heal. We're offering prayers for the water protectors who are doing tireless work. Prayers for my loved ones. May they find the resources they need to hold and fill their broken hearts. We're offering prayers for my friend Nina, who made her way into the Bardo a few weeks ago. Prayer for my friend and the health of her pregnancy. Offering so many prayers for Haiti. Prayers for Sydney and Nicola and the people in Afghanistan. Offering prayers for my sister Marcy, the 3rd anniversary of her passing. Offering prayers for my sweet older rescue dog, service dog in training, Heidi. He is in the hospital overnight tonight. Also praying for those in harm's way in Hurricane Ida and those in Afghanistan and around the world. Offering prayers for Bobby, who is healing from a fractured leg, for Dove, Sue-Ann, and Susan, who are being treated for cancer, for Jeff and Sally, who need eye surgery, CL, who passed recently, Robin, who is recovering from illness, Shaya, who has degenerative spine disease, and his wife, Bahia, who is the caretaker. We're offering prayers for Patricia and her health, for all those who are grieving, for all who struggle with their practice, for Lama Rod and team, with gratitude for your guidance. And offering prayers for Falcon Collective as they fight racist city planning and gentrification. Prayer requests to heal the land in Humboldt neighborhood in Portland, Oregon, and return it to the Black and Indigenous community. We're also offering prayers for Lola, who is unwell and suffering. And I want her to be free from pain and to be okay. I long to hug her when I can travel back home. Prayers for my Lola's wellness. I would like to offer a prayer for a dear Dharma friend John Renish, who passed away a couple of weeks ago. We're offering prayers for my friend Benny Conley, who died in the World Trade Center trying to save others. Prayers for my husband and I as we're attempting to be friends again after a 2-year separation. I'm offering prayers for my sister who is struggling with panic attacks in college and also holding her job. So we continue to offer these prayers and all unspoken prayers into this awakened consciousness of Medicine Buddha. And we ask all those beings gathered to help bring about the wishes and the aspirations of this community for the liberation of all beings. And so, when you're ready, I invite you to shift your attention down to the seats. Particularly bringing attention to your tailbone. Imagine breathing in and out of the tailbone right at the bottom of the spine. And shifting our attention now even lower, touching into the energy of the earth itself. Even beginning to name the energy of the earth that you're connecting to. Be it the energy of stability or foundation, the energy of life. But touching into the energy of the earth, beginning to feel this awakened consciousness of the earth, of the land. Now returning your attention back to the base of your spine, I invite you to imagine that you're breathing, inhaling from the earth, from the land itself, into the base of your spine. So you're inhaling the energy of the earth into your spine, and slowly, as we're inhaling more and more from the earth, we begin to imagine our bodies beginning to be filled energetically with this healing, foundational energy of the earth. And as we move through this first practice, first part of our mantra, we'll begin our mantra right here as well. Teata bekense maha bekense rata sumungate soha. Okay? And the mantra is right there at the bottom of the screen there. Alright. And you can chant along or you can just listen to the mantra. But either or, continuing to imagine that your body's filling with the energy of the land under you, the earth. O te atang begenze, begenze, ma begenze, rasa sumungate soa. Te atang begenze, begenze, ma begenze, rasa sumungate soa. Te atang begenze, ma begenze, rasa sumungate So as you're filled with this energy of the earth, I invite you to imagine that this energy of the earth becomes this radiant white energy, warm white radiant energy. That you begin to radiate this healing energy of the earth, which is also at the same time this healing energy of Medicine Buddha. Imagining that we begin to radiate, cleansing and helping and supporting all the situations that we've offered up in prayer for ourselves and for others. In a way, becoming like the Mother Tara as this radiant star that heals and guides all beings towards freedom. Our energy, our aspiration begins to radiate into all those who are struggling right now, helping, supporting, energizing, whatever it may be. Continue our mantra again. Beyenze ma beyenze raza sunga te soa teata beyenze ma beyenze raza sunga te soa teata beyenze ma beyenze raza sunga te soa teata And so for just the last mantra recitation, so we begin to imagine that we, as we have been filled with this energy of the earth, we turn our attention back to ourselves and we begin to dissolve into this energy of the earth. We're just exploring and experimenting what that means. Again, dissolving ourselves into this fundamentally healing, liberatory energy. So slowly dissolving our physical self into this energy of the earth and of Medicine Buddha. And letting that energy take care of us. O te ata beyenze ma beyenze rasa sumunga de zoa te ata 베근세 마베근세 라서 숨은 가리 좋아 대야자온 베근세 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 베근세 마베근세 라서 숨은 가리 좋아. Just letting the mind just rest wherever it is. Just noticing and not reacting. Letting thoughts, the sensations and emotions just rise up into the mind without grabbing onto it or attaching ourselves to it. Just watching. And this is the mind of the great healer of Medicine Buddha. Okay. Just beginning to slowly re-arouse ourselves, bringing attention back to the seat, noticing the weight of the body making contact with the seat. So allow your mind to come back into the present, to something tangible. If you would like, just adding some movements to begin to awaken the body as we go into our dedication of merit, our Shantideva prayer. And just shake it. You can do what I call the Mariah Carey. Shake it off. Or if you grew up in the black Southern church, you just shake the devil off. Alright? Or you can just shimmy it. Okay? So let's turn our attention to our Shantideva prayer, and we'll recite this 3 times. Okay? Excuse me. We begin. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures, and until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach into the ends of space. May I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures, and until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach unto the ends of space. And finally, may I be a protector to those without protection, a leader for those who journey, and a boat, a bridge, a passage for those desiring the further shore. May the pain of every living creature be completely cleared away. May I be the doctor and the medicine, and may I be the nurse for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. Just like space and the great elements such as earth, may I always support the life of all the boundless creatures, and until they pass away from pain, may I also be the source of life for all the realms of varied beings that reach unto the ends of space. Thank you all so much for your practice. Okay, so I'm just going to turn my attention to the questions here. So the first question, I'm just going to answer these 2 questions, everyone, because it's going to take me a minute to get through each of these. But we're going to do it. Here we go. I often wonder about collection of merit. Let's say there's an individual due to past good deeds now sits at the feet of his teacher, serving him, etc., gaining merit. But how does this compare to the individual marginalized, oppressed, who undercover alone practices in fear of his life or their life? How would his collection of merit compare, their collection of merit? Okay. I just want to say, I know this is like karma and merit is a huge misunderstood topic in Dharma. Um, I'm not saying that like I'm an expert on this, but when we, it's hard to compare merit. It's hard to compare merit and to say, oh, who has it better? You know, um, there's so much more going on than what appears to be going on, right? Because, like I've said this before, often we are, like, there are awakened people in our life who would never do anything in this life called Buddhism, right? We've met awakened beings who have nothing to do with Buddhism. Um, like, Buddhism is just this one thing among countless things that have emerged to point us to the essence of things, right? And so I don't necessarily believe that becoming a Buddhist is like the top of the merit ladder you can get, even though the literature says so. The prayers literature, you know, the teachings. I know, you know, many of us who've been around for a bit, we know, you know, the kind of superiority that Tibetan Tantra can take on in the world of practice among all the traditions. So I guess you have to kind of, yes, this is great. This is great merit that we're practicing together, that we're trying to think about liberation, to do something beneficial. This is great. This is what we should focus on. You know, but I'm gonna get to the rest of the question, but I'm just saying as a side thing. This is enough, you know, to be joyous about, that you have some inkling to think about something else and to engage in this lineage of practice, which does come out of a lineage, right? You know, I think that's a lot of merit to rejoice in. I think anyone who just wants to help and who wants to benefit, who has a lot of compassion, who's trying to do, as Spike Lee says, do the right thing, I think that's incredible merit, to want to create, to want to benefit instead of harming. So, and I just take it that, you know, if someone's marginalized, oppressed, and they're practicing alone because, you know, of course, you know, maybe they can't practice openly. You know, I'll tell you what, you know, and this is going to come more out of the orthodox material of Buddhism. You know, there are teachings that say that, like, the practice is deeper and more generative when there's such a loyalty and devotion to it, which is where we get martyrdom from. You know, is where we get fanatics in different religions and spiritual paths from. That, of course, that's the shadow, right? The shadow, that fanaticism is the shadow of that devotion. But the light side of that devotion is just this deep adherence to a practice and a path, knowing that it's going to help you awaken, and doing it knowing that you could, you know, face consequences, negative consequences for being found out. Like I often say, like, when we're practicing in crisis, that's when, like, the practice is really going deep, because you're expressing a lot of energy, a lot of effort, and a lot of intention, and that does nothing but drive the practice deeper, right? It creates more expansiveness, it creates more depth, right? More openness. Yeah. So when you're talking about sitting at the feet of the guru, opposed to being somewhere isolated and practicing, I mean, to be somewhere practicing, you know, and committed to the practice, knowing that, like, someone finding out that you're doing this is going to lead to a lot of trouble. That's I think that's a different kind of merit, I would say. So I think at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is that there are different merits, right? That's one kind of merit. Because we don't know who's chosen, like who has actually consented as they've come into this particular world system to be in the places where people are struggling, where beings are struggling. That is the expression of the Bodhisattva. I therefore will say this: I tend to trust people out in the world doing and creating change than the people who are just sitting around. And how should I kind of say this nicely? I want to see people doing the work instead of sitting in spaces theorizing about the work. That's where I choose to be, is to be on the front lines, doing practice, doing work, right? For me, I will just use myself as a last before I want to move on and be done by 8:30. But there are those of us in this space, I would wager many of us, maybe not all of us, many of us, grew up in situations, or we're in families, or our communities, or whatever it may be, groups. I would say families. Let's just say family. We're in families where I bet we're the only people doing this. Interested in meditation or dharma or chanting, or this kind of stuff, as my family says, this kind of stuff. You may very well be the only person. As I was growing up, I grew up Methodist, Black Methodist Church. Didn't know anything about Buddhism. Took a class on world religions in college. But that was the spark for me. It was that class, and that led later on to practicing. But I just, as many of us, we had the merit to return back to practicing a liberatory path, right? And as long as our intention is to be liberated and to free others, then it is a meritorious path. No matter if we call it Christian, or maybe magic traditions. Well, I would say white magic traditions. Not that Buddhism doesn't have black magic traditions. We do, but that's not for people getting getting free. Right? It's for people getting back. Like our dear Saint Milarepa, who was many things, including a terrorist, including a mass murderer. So if we have evidence, well, in the stories, in the mythology, Milarepa killing 39 people, most of them were his family. And then, what we can read in other texts are just other ethical misconducts, right? And then Milarepa becomes the patron saint of Tibetan Buddhism. So I'll leave it here because this is very, very, very super duper, extremely complex. But just to leave you with this, we can't compare merits, and that everything isn't what it seems. That again, just to influence you, it's much better to see people out in the world practicing, doing, creating, because those are the people who are actually doing the practice, doing the work. And that's what we have to learn from, ultimately, with the assistance, with the help of others who are doing other kinds of maybe intellectual work. But this is, Buddhism in general is a path of experience. So if you're not doing the experience, if you're not watching your mind, your body, right, then you're not doing dharma. Okay, I promise I'm going to end by 8:30. During the prayer offering, it suddenly occurred to me to pray for the very bigoted brothers of my friend who died in the World Trade Center. Okay? They did not come to her memorial service after her remains were identified because they had disowned her as their sister because she was a lesbian. Okay? Let me just make sure I get all the details. From when he died. Disowned her as their sister because she was a lesbian. Even after it was known she died while risking her life to save others. Part of me, excuse me, part of me wants to pray for them, but part of me is still angry and repulsed by their behavior. How do I reconcile these feelings? Well, I think first you hold both of these feelings together. There's compassion there. You want to pray, but then you're still pissed off. And I think both of those need to live in your practice together for a while. And you shouldn't do anything with it, actually. But hold space for them. That's the reconciliation. The reconciliation isn't you trying to get rid of the aversion. It's about allowing the aversion to be there, the aversion to do this prayer, right? For these brothers. Yeah. And of course, that anger comes from the hurts, from the brokenheartedness. And maybe a prayer could be that you pray for the well-being of these brothers, even though I'm still pissed off and they can go to hell. You have to start somewhere. I have had to pray my way through. I actually had to pray for like Donald Trump and something like this. Someone, as a prayer request, they were like, please pray for Donald Trump. That's when you call all your practice together in that 1 second. Because that is an act of intense. Well, it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be intense, but I would just say it's an act of compassion in that one moment. In my position, and I've been asked, it's like as a Buddhist minister, right, teacher, I have been asked to do some stuff that, I feel like just ethically against. I'm like ethically against right now praying for dictators. In general, like I won't say that's like where I'm always at, but like sometimes that's not the prayer that I'm doing, right? But as a minister, my job isn't, I don't know, to censor, to critique, but to understand where people are coming from and to come back into that basic expression of compassion, which is saying that, like, I just want to pray for you to be free from suffering, to be well. I'm not applauding or condoning anything that you're doing. I just, as a person, as a being, I want you to be free, right? Because if you felt free, maybe you wouldn't be doing some of the things that you're doing to create harm. Or I've been asked to step into situations, like high-profile situations that, it's hard to navigate. It's hard to navigate because part of me is like ethically opposed to the situation, but part of me, as the minister, has made a commitment to offer spiritual care and support. It's one of the aspirations or vows that I have, right? Yeah, you say, may this jerk be well, even though they get on my nerves. Fine, start there. Okay. All right. There's so many people that we have to pray for right now. So we just just keep practicing, keep moving through these practices. just keep caring for yourself. Keep doing whatever you can to create the space to do something that's important for you. I know we all have different capacities for that, but we need, I think we need a little more fun right now as we move into the winter. So self-care, caring for ourselves. Okay. So in any case, check the website for our events this week, and my website for my events. And what else? What else? And we'll be back again next Monday, and then we'll be off the following Mondays, the last 3 Mondays in September. So the first Monday in September, yes. The rest of the Mondays, no. Okay, because I will be going on or taking retreat time, like actual, just retreat time. So I need that. Okay, so I think that is it. Thank you all for being here and supporting the saga. I hope to see you, again in the different events I'll be teaching this week. Okay. Thank you, everyone.